Yes, yes, yes. So I am so excited, y'all, to get to introduce you to the fabulous Reverend Gaylon McDowell. I've known Gaylon for many years now. When I was in Chicago serving at the Bodhi Spiritual Center, he really became part of our family there. And he was speaking regularly and was really provided such spiritual food for me personally. So when we were able to have guests via Zoom, I was like, we got to get Reverend Gaylon. So let me tell you a little bit about him officially, so you don't have to just take my word for it. You know, he has some credentials too, right? So Reverend Gaylon McDowell is the Senior Assistant Minister at Christ Universal Temple in Chicago. He was mentored by the late Reverend Johnny Coleman. He serves as a director of the Universal Foundation for Better Living, and he's the host of Truth Transforms on Unity Radio. That's a podcast you can get from him, I think, every week. And he's also a contributor to the Science of Mind magazine. And this month in September, he has an article. So make sure you check him out there. But I just know you're going to love him as much as I do. And I'm super grateful to get to Zoom him in this day. So please give a warm welcome, hands up, to Reverend Gaylon McDowell. You're still muted. Hold on. that's the big thing these days, right? You're on mute.
Okay, yeah.
There we go.
I get it. You want to make sure there are no hiccups anywhere. So first of all, let me just say hi to my good friend, Reverend Rainbow. We go back. We go way back. We've done some good work with each other. I want to thank you, thank the spiritual director of your center, Reverend Sonny, and I want to just thank all of you all for having me here today. You know, I've enjoyed the service so far, and hopefully I can give something that will help you get some breakthroughs that you desire. I want to give love from Christ Universal Temple, which is a New Thought Center in Chicago, Illinois, that was started in 1956 by the legendary Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman. I want to give love from the Universal Foundation for Better Living, for which I'm the second vice president of the board of directors. And I was playing around with the title of your lesson, because when I was told that your center's name is based upon the Hebrew word for love, I was like, okay, man, I need to play with this. So before I get into my lesson, which is overcoming fear, by the way, overcoming fear, we're going to have a lot of good stuff to talk about, but I wanted to just play with it for a second. So Jesus was a Jewish man who spoke Galilean Aramaic. And so I went to look up, I said, okay, I wonder what the difference is between the Hebrew and the Aramaic for the same word, love. So I looked it up, and I found something interesting. First of all, in Aramaic, you would say Allah Huba, which means God is love. And Huba literally means white hot, or to set on fire, meaning that when you are working with the power of love, it is that power that sets you on fire to give, to support, to be the transformation, not only in your own life, but in the lives of others. It also means, from the context of white hot, when you want to change a metal, you burn it, you heat it rather, to the point to where it gets white hot. If you ever seen those movies, or you might work in the field, when they want to shape metal, they heat it to the point to where it goes past orange and it gets white. And at that point, they can mold it to being the shape that the person that's doing the work wants it to be. Well, when we allow love to function in our consciousness in a way that's transformative, it shapes and forms our character. It shapes and forms our contacts. It shapes and forms our beliefs. And here's the thing: when you heat something to the point of it being white hot, it melts away the impurities. We all have beliefs that I'm going to get into very strongly in a moment. We all have beliefs that don't necessarily always give us the results we desire. A belief is just what we accept as true. And when we carry beliefs that get us results that we don't necessarily desire or prefer, we have to start the process of melting away, of rising so high in consciousness that we release, that we delete, that we diminish, that we push away beliefs that are not consistent with the truth of our being. Therefore, then the love of God within us can shape and form us into the divine purpose and plan that has already been placed in our souls. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully that was helpful for somebody. So let me get into the lesson. Overcoming fear. Now, fear is an interesting topic because when you start talking about fear, a lot of people have a lot of different things about the term fear and what it means. We have a lot of different things that make us afraid. For some people, they fear money issues. Some people, they fear having too much. Some people, and a lot of people, fear not having enough to take care of their responsibilities, to take care of their financial goals, home goals, or whatever. Some people have fear around relationships. You have some folks who will sabotage a thing just because they have so much fear that they don't think that it'll last or it'll work out the way they need it to be, or they always think that somebody's going to leave them or something's not going to go right. So they actually create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Some people have fear around their careers. Some people have fear around the nation. Some people have fear around the world. And I'm not saying that any of these things aren't based in fact. I am saying, though, that we have to be mindful about allowing fear to drive our behavior. Why? Because you can look at the same set of circumstances and deal with them from a standpoint of empowerment or from the perspective of fear. What we don't realize many times is fear shows up at times because it's a natural human emotion. But we choose to stay in fear, whether consciously or unconsciously. And what I mean by that is, if you don't do anything about the fear and you choose to stay there, that is an unconscious choice to experience the same thing. And because what we radiate from consciousness, we attract back to us. When we put out fear and we're staying in that state of consciousness, we're actually telling the universal laws that govern the universe that we want more of the same experiences that will create more of the fear, and it becomes its own cycle. Now, God isn't giving you fear. Again, we're talking about universal law. We're talking about the standpoint of you can't outperform your own consciousness. Therefore, if you want different results, you have to think differently. Matter of fact, I can remember, they don't have it on here anymore. This is the actual Science of Mind magazine that my latest article is in, The Power of the New Thought Message. So make sure you get it, please, Power of the New Thought Message. But it used to, back in the day, the old Science of Mind magazines used to have on the top, change your thinking, change your life. Change your thinking, change your life. And that simple statement was to get people to understand that everything begins in the mind, that you're not going to outperform your own consciousness. And when you get that, you have to change your thinking, that you have to change with the way you feel, you have to change what's going on in your belief systems, you then can change your life. But you can't put the cart before the horse. Now, there's an acronym that people use called for fear. They say that fear is false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. And I love it because many times what it's saying is, what's presenting itself is not necessarily something to be afraid of, and all of those things. And I love the statement and I use it often. But today I'm going to flip it and use it a little bit differently. Sometimes the evidence or the facts are accurate. So it's not false evidence, because evidence is just proof. Therefore, are we allowing the appearances to determine how we think, feel, and what we believe about life. In other words, fear is all about perception, not the evidence, because the same evidence will not necessarily make everyone afraid. So it's not just that it's false evidence appearing real, it's really my perception, is our perception of what's happening that is driving the fear. Hopefully that makes sense. If it's making sense just for the people, so I know that I'm connecting with folks because I'm just seeing myself on the screen, I want to make sure that you're getting it. So just like, hey, Rev, I'm getting it. Put it in the comment section. I would greatly appreciate it. We all have beliefs in our subconscious minds that frame or create the context in which we live. I'm going to repeat that. We all have beliefs in our subconscious minds that frame or create the context through which we live. So the situation shows up, it appears. Now, what am I going to do? You know, there's a statement I teach in my classes in the Johnny Coleman Institute. I borrowed from Jack Canfield, so I don't want to take credit for it. But it's E plus R equals O. If somebody could put that in the comment section, E plus R equals O. And it means event plus response equals outcome. Event plus response equals outcome. Now, what this is saying is that when the event shows up, when the evidence shows up, when the appearance shows up, we are at choice with our response. We are at cause, at response. Now, New Thought teaches cause and effect. As the brother Tom Johnson used to teach back in the day, he's deceased now, he was a friend of Reverend Coleman's. He wrote a book called You're Always Your Own Experience, which is rather difficult to get these days. But in You're Always Your Own Experience, he was a science of mind minister. He was teaching people that you are always at cause. So event plus response equals outcome means that regardless of what's showing up, I get to choose what it means to me. I get to choose if I put power into that experience. I get to choose to change it and flip it in my mind to create outcomes that are not necessarily being presented to me. Because with God, all things are possible. So some people say, well, I had to act this way. I had to do this because. The moment you give the because, you're saying that something else is determining your choice. Something else is determining how you use your own power of perception, how you are using the power of your own conscious thought. But you have to remember that you're working with a framework that is in your subconscious mind. You're working with a mental equivalent, as Emmett Fox would write back in the day, which I recommend anybody who studies this teaching. If you don't have the mental equivalent, it's a little booklet, pamphlet by Emmett Fox. I would strongly recommend it. That and Life is Consciousness. But in the mental equivalent, Emmett Fox talks about mental clarity and conviction. Mental clarity and conviction. And notice how I just use my body to explain it. How well do I see a thing? What's my deep-seated feeling about it? He believed, and we teach in New Thought, that the mental equivalent is the mental blueprint through which we give to universal law to present back to us our life, world, and affairs. Now, I don't want you thinking that there's some law outside of you and then there's you. This is we're in the awareness and teaching of oneness. Therefore, your mental equivalent is that which produces or generates from you the patterns for your life. Just like a blueprint is the pattern for a building, the substances necessary to build the building come after the blueprint. Well, in life, the resources of spirit, the resources of consciousness, the physical resources of the world come together around what you believe. Again, if this is making sense, just let me know in the comment section. So from my perspective, most people don't see life from a new thought point of view. And what I want to do is just kind of give you some basic points of a new thought point of view from our teaching. Now, let me give some context to this before I get into these points. 5 points. I tell my students, clients, and people I work with all the time that understanding determines if something is a problem or not. Understanding determines if something is a problem or not. And what that means is this. Say, for instance, I was on the highway in my SUV and I was having some problems. I pull over and I pop the hood. I'm looking at this engine. Now, I don't know anything about fixing cars at all. Now, if you need somebody to do a metaphysical exegesis of the book of Genesis, I'm your guy. When it comes to fixing cars, I'm not your guy. So I pop the hood. I'm looking at the engine and I don't know why the car won't start or do what it's supposed to do. I call the insurance people. They pull up. Maybe they have a mechanic. He looks under the hood, 30 seconds. Try starting it up now. Crank it up, and it's ready to roll. Now, what's the difference between the mechanic and me? Understanding. That's it. For the mechanic who understands the principles of that make a car work or a car engine functional, that issue wasn't a problem. For a person who has no understanding of the principles or how a car engine works, it is a problem. So let me just present to you the possibility that the thing that is bothering you or causing fear or creating issues in your life might be solely based on something that you don't understand about God and yourself. For instance, if it's a prosperity issue, I saw that you all were doing the Prosperity Plus program. I can remember, by the way, hearing Mary Manning Morrissey, that was a while ago, at our church conference, Panorama of Truth. That was well over a decade ago, maybe 15, 16 years ago now. But say, for instance, it's a prosperity issue. What is it about prosperity that I don't understand? What is it about the term God is the source of my supply that I don't understand? That will determine the conversation. And it's important for us to recognize that. Say, for instance, it's healing, health. What is it about God as life in me that I don't understand? Because the difference in understanding is similar to a faucet. You know, like if you didn't have a faucet, for instance, on your kitchen sink, the water would just flow out all the time because the pressure coming through the pipes would force the water to come out. The faucet actually stops the water and it regulates the level or the amount of water that can come out of the pipes at one time. We can stop it or it can limit it. So, for instance, God as life is pouring through you, but your mind, your consciousness, your awareness is the faucet that allows only a certain amount to come out based upon your understanding of God as life. So as Emmett Fox would write, there is no such thing as undemonstrated understanding, which is my favorite statement in all of spirituality and religion. There is no such thing as undemonstrated understanding. What that is saying, when it's all said and done, is that we only have an understanding problem or an understanding issue. And when we rectify our understanding, the demonstration has to show up. What you understand, you can do. What you understand, you can duplicate. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. What you understand, you can duplicate. It's not happenstance. If you know how to cook a great dishes, if you're a person that's really good in the kitchen, you can produce the same type of dish or cake or whatever over and over again without the recipe, without reading something from a box. You know it. And because you know it, it's a part of your being and you do it naturally. Well, here's what I'm saying. The prosperity, the healing, the joy, the peace of mind, the harmony in your life, the success in business or your career, the success with your family, can be a part of your universal flow when you understand that you, which I'm gonna get in a moment, are the image and likeness of God, and God's power resides within you. You're fully equipped to handle what's in front of you right now, and never think that you're not. So let me drill down on 5 basic points. This is how we teach them in the Universal Foundation for Better Living, which, like Centers for Spiritual Living, is an organization of New Thought churches. Ours was founded in 1974 by the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman after she left the Unity movement and went independent. Now, the first one is the omnipresence of God. Why is this important when it comes to overcoming fear? Because you have to recognize that you live, move, and have your very being in God. There is just as much God in you and where you are right now as there is in any part of the universe, manifested or unmanifested. There's just as much God. God is omnipresence, not just omnipresent. Omnipresence means all the presence there is. Omnipresent means everywhere equally present. New Thought teaches that God is omnipresence. Now, if God is omnipresence and God's nature is absolute good and God's will for you is absolute good, the potential or the possibility of absolute good is present where you are. And if you have an awareness, which I'm going to get to in a moment, an awareness of God is absolute good in your current experience, in your current environment, then good can manifest there because God is already there. Omnipresence. Supply is here. Healing is here. Peace is here. Wisdom is here. Joy is here. It's all here, right here and right now, as an infinite possibility, as a part of your infinite potential. Now, moving on, because I'll run out of time really quickly. I'm rather long-winded. The second one is the divinity of humankind. And somebody can write these things in the comment section. The divinity of humankind. And what that says yet again is that we are made in the image and likeness of God. What I like to say, my own personal term is there's something radically right about you. And from that perspective, I'm saying that if God is spirit, you are spirit, I am spirit, we are spirit. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verses 4 and 5, it says, "Now the word of the Lord came to me saying, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you." Now, who is the you that was formed before you were formed, or that God knew before you were formed in your mother's womb? Before the biological act of even creating a child. You are spirit. You precede birth and you transcend what we call death. You are the image and likeness of God. You are an individualized expression of the one mind, the one power, the one substance, the one life that we call God. That's who you are, not your height, weight, or your ethnic background. I'm not saying that any of those things don't matter. What I am saying is they're not your origin. New Thought says, let's start from our point of view of who are we in spirit first, and then allow spirit to empower and reflect through our various ways of expression. Then there's the third point. The value and power of thought. Now, again, the value and power of thought. Somebody can write that down in the comment section. Now, this is important because, again, you have to change your thinking to change your life. And the thinking is the movement of ideas and consciousness or mind. And if you can't think in alignment with the truth about God and the truth about you, you can't benefit fully from who you are. Yes, you are a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual law. But if your thinking is out of alignment with the truth of who you are, you have to get the experiences of your thinking, not necessarily the experiences that are consistent with the truth of who you are in God and who God is in you. So yes, God is omnipresent good. And yes, God's omnipresent good resides within you as the I am, or your spiritual nature. And yes, you are an individualized expression of God. But if you don't know it, you can't show it. So the reason why New Thought focuses so much on the transformation of consciousness and these tools like denials and affirmation and meditating and visualizing and visioning, which I'm going to get to in a moment, is because these are the things that help us shape and form our thinking. This is why we study so much. You know, you see some books behind me. This is one of probably 10 bookshelves I have around my house right now, and other stuff just packed in boxes. Why? Because when you start to study, you increase your ability to think at a higher plane. When you start to think about study spiritual principles and things that allow your mind to expand. Trust me when I tell you, and I read a whole lot, but part of it is because I'm challenging my mind. I don't read just to say, okay, I accept this person's point of view. What I do is I read because I want to challenge my mind to think a little bit differently. Fourth point, practicing the presence, which we call prayer or affirmative prayer, which New Thought doesn't beg and beseech. We affirm the truth of what already is in God and in ourselves. We meditate, we contemplate these truths that we learn. We sit in the silence, which is the space where once you contemplate and meditate on the truth about God, you go to a place that transcends words and thoughts. That's where you get the jolt or the infusion of the healing power, the prospering power, the wisdom and guidance. And then there's the law of demonstration. The law of demonstration. So number 4 was practicing the presence. Number 4 is the law of demonstration. Again, we believe that we're spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual law. And what that means in real time is this, that thoughts held in mind produce after their own kind. Thoughts held in mind produce after their own kind. In New Thought, we call that the law of mind action, capital M, the law of mind action, which means, again, thoughts held in mind produce after their own kind. Like begets like, not just like attracts like begets like. So you can't have watermelon seeds and tomato vines with tomatoes and tomato seeds. Watermelon seeds produce watermelon vines with watermelons with more watermelon seeds. Prosperous thoughts, healing thoughts, joyful thoughts produce like experiences. And so does hate, anger, frustration, and fear. So if you want to stay out of fear, you have to know the truth about who you are. So what I did today was, because I'm running out of time, is give you 5 principles to help you overcome fear. First, you have to understand the omnipresence of God. God's good is everywhere, equally present, including in you. You have to understand the divinity of humankind, that the presence and power of God resides within you as your spiritual nature. There's something radically right about you. You have the power to overcome anything. The value and power of thought, that you have to get your thinking in alignment with the truth of who you are. Don't let your thinking go off somewhere else into a whole bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with the truth about who you are. You have to regulate your thinking. You have to discipline your thinking to be in alignment with the truth of who you are. Okay. Number 4, practicing the presence. You have to put your system in place to make sure that you have a prayer life, not just pray, that you have a prayer life. A life means activity, animation. So you have to put time into your affirmative prayer. You have to put time into your meditative contemplation. You have to spend time in the silence, allowing spirit to fill you up. Don't go out there driving this engine called the body, going out into the world without the gas that it needs. You wouldn't drive your car on E, hopefully, until it runs out, or without having an oil change, where the maintenance of your mind and body will be determined by how you pray, how you meditate, and how you sit in the silence. Number 5, understanding that this is a universe governed by law. As the Apostle Paul wrote, God is not mocked, Galatians 6:7. Whatever a man sows, so shall he reap. So shall he reap. I really want you to get that. So you can understand that you're not just dealing with physical laws and physical people, you're dealing with universal principles that govern everything. Everything is governed by law. And here's the thing, the law of God, these universal creative forces and powers respond to the way you think. And I'm not talking about surfacely. I'm talking about what you really believe about yourself, about God, about life, about health, about peace, about love, about joy, about prosperity, whatever it is that you believe, that is what goes into the law as the seed to produce experiences. Thoughts held in mind produce after their own kind. Thoughts held in mind produce after their own kind. You can't have watermelon seeds and end up with apple trees. This is why the founder of our movement, the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, would always say, I am the thinker that thinks the thought that makes the thing. I am the thinker that thinks the thought that makes the thing. So I want to leave you with this close that I think is really important. I just want to give you a couple of quick things, and then I'm going to shut up and allow the service to go on. This question came to me. What do I need to feel safe? What do I need to feel safe? Again, this is talking about your understanding. Because when you start asking that question, what do I need to feel safe? First of all, there's nothing wrong with asking that question. You'll start to discover that we put a lot of power in the outer things. I need this to go right. I need that to go right. I need this to go right. Okay, now then the question comes into play is this: how do I apply spiritual principles to the things that make me feel like I'm not safe? Okay, my money's not right. How do I apply spiritual principles to that? Okay, my health is not where I want it to be. How do I apply spiritual principle to it? Okay, my career is not right. How do I apply spiritual principles to it? And so on and so on. So when you ask the question, what do I need to feel safe? Then write them down, be clear about it, and then start asking, what divine idea do I need to work with to help me produce it? Now, I know that that there is people like Reverend Rainbow and your spiritual director who will help you understand how to work with divine ideas like life, wisdom, power, substance, wisdom, whatever it is. How do you apply it to what you are dealing with? And then start taking radical mental and physical action to apply it in your life. Do the study. Stay apart and plugged into this community so it can help you get through sometimes the tough things you have to do when you start bringing things up in your soul, because that's a healing process in and of itself. And if you do those things, what do I need to feel safe? And once you are clear about those things and you apply spiritual principles to what you're dealing with, while you have this community of faith to help you work through the process, trust me when I tell you, if you do the work, your study, your prayer work, and the work, you will get magnificent breakthroughs. God bless you.
We're giving you lots of love with the hands here, Rev Gaylon. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Yes, yes. Such an amazing, just like hardcore metaphysical lesson today, which you always bring. Yes.
I'm
yes.
the hardcore metaphysics guy. That's what I do.
Yes. So we would love, Reverend Gabe, if you would just wrap this up for us, your part here with some prayer for us.
Okay. Well, if we can just take a moment just to center ourselves and just take 7 deep breaths. As we release, let go, and let God, we recognize that right here, right now, that we're fully equipped to handle life and overcome whatever we see as an obstacle. We recognize that there are no obstacles in God. There are no problems in God. And we rise in consciousness to the space and place in our awareness where we recognize our oneness with God. I am one with God. I am one with all life. I am one with the source of all good. I am one with the source of all prosperity. I am prosperity. I am abundance. I am one with the source of all life. I am divine health manifested. I am the life of God in expression. I am one with peace. I allow the peace of God to show up in my thoughts and feelings. And 1,000 can fall at my side and 10,000 at my right hand, but it shall not touch my peace. My peace is centered in God and not in outer circumstances. I take empowered action, but I do it from a consciousness of oneness. I take care of my responsibilities, but I do it from the standpoint that God is the source of my supply. I make wise choices because God is the wisdom within me and within each one of us. God's intuitive knowing, God's inspiration, and God's intelligence fills me up and fills you up with supreme knowing. We are grateful. We thank you, God. We thank you as the source and center of all good. We recognize that we live, move, and have our very being in omnipresent good. We set aside any erroneous beliefs that seek to detach us from an awareness that we are one with God. We set aside any religious beliefs, any philosophical beliefs, any national beliefs, any international beliefs that would even challenge the belief and the understanding and our knowing that we are one with the source of all good. We are divine expressions of the one presence and power that we call God or Spirit. Therefore, we go forward in purpose and power with this one question in our minds. God, what is your highest vision for my life now? God, what is your highest vision for my life now? Sit with that prayer and that question for the rest of the day. Allow that question to flow and work in your soul and allow the answer to emerge. You don't have to create it. The presence and power of God within you as the I am in you knows what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Therefore, we release and we let God reveal the highest vision for our life or our lives right here and right now. I pray this in the consciousness of the awareness of God in each one of us. And so it is. Amen.